Power does not disappear suddenly. It weakens gradually when a person misjudges how people behave, how loyalty works, and how control is maintained. Most failures in leadership do not come from lack of intelligence. They come from incorrect assumptions about human nature. Niccolò Machiavelli built his argument on this exact problem, and in The Prince he explains that people are predictable, but not in the way most expect. This is purely noetical, where power is examined from a practical point of view, based on history, behavior, and observable outcomes. In this analysis, you will understand why fear produces more consistent behavior than love, why public image shapes authority more than truth, why incomplete action creates future problems, and why most people lose influence even when they believe they are acting correctly. This content is for educational purposes, based on political philosophy, historical patterns, and behavioral studies. Machiavelli wrote during a period of political instability in Italy, where governments frequently collapsed, alliances shifted, and leaders were removed quickly. His work is not theoretical. It is based on repeated observation. He noticed that leaders who relied on goodwill, morality, or trust alone did not last long, while those who understood control, perception, and consequences were more stable over time. His central idea is simple. A person who tries to act morally in every situation will eventually be overpowered by those who do not follow the same rules. Lesson number 1. It is safer to be feared than loved. Niccolò Machiavelli explains that love depends on emotional attachment, while fear depends on consequences. Emotional attachment is unstable because it changes based on circumstances, personal benefit, and shifting interests. People may support you when it is convenient, but withdraw that support when it is no longer in their favor. Fear, however, creates a consistent boundary because it introduces a clear cost for disobedience, and that cost remains present regardless of changing emotions. When people know there are consequences, they think carefully before acting against authority. This creates predictability. A system built on fear does not rely on people liking you. It relies on people understanding what happens if they cross certain limits. This makes behavior more stable over time. Modern behavioral research supports this pattern. Studies in organizational psychology show that compliance rates increase significantly when there are clear consequences for actions. In structured environments such as military systems, discipline is not maintained by emotional loyalty alone, but by clearly defined rules and enforcement. Data from these systems shows that rule adherence can exceed 90% when enforcement is consistent and predictable. However, Machiavelli adds an important limitation. Fear must not turn into hatred. If people begin to feel personally attacked, insulted, or unfairly treated, they stop responding to fear and begin to resist. At that point, fear loses its stabilizing effect and becomes a trigger for opposition. This is why control must be firm, but measured. The goal is not to create suffering, but to create clear boundaries that people understand and respect. Lesson number 2. Appear virtuous, but do not depend on virtue. Machiavelli separates appearance from action. He explains that people judge based on what they see, not on internal intentions or hidden decisions. Most people do not have access to full information, so they rely on visible behavior to form opinions. This means that a leader must consistently present an image of honesty, discipline, fairness, and stability, even when decisions behind the scenes require flexibility. This does not mean that virtue is useless. It means that visible virtue is a tool that shapes trust and acceptance. If people believe you are fair and reliable, they are more likely to support your authority. But if you rely only on being virtuous in every situation, you may become limited in your ability to respond to challenges. Modern public perception data supports this. Surveys in political science consistently show that public approval is strongly influenced by visible behavior rather than detailed policy decisions. For example, trust ratings for leaders can shift by more than 20% based on communication style, body language, and public messaging alone, even when policies remain exactly the same. This shows that perception operates independently from reality. A leader who understands this can maintain stability even during difficult decisions, as long as the public image remains controlled and consistent. The conclusion: is direct. Image shapes acceptance more strongly than internal consistency, and those who ignore this lose influence without always understanding why. Lesson number 3. The ends justify the means. Machiavelli argues that outcomes define judgment. People tend to evaluate actions based on results rather than intentions. If a leader succeeds, actions that were once questioned are often accepted or even praised. If a leader fails, even ethical and careful decisions are reinterpreted as weakness or poor judgment. This pattern appears repeatedly in history. Leaders who achieve stability, growth, or victory are often remembered positively, even when their methods were harsh or controversial. On the other hand, leaders who fail are criticized, even if they acted with good intentions. This shows that public judgment is strongly tied to outcomes, not to the process used to reach them. Modern research in decision theory supports this observation. Studies show that people evaluate decisions based on results rather than the quality of the decision-making process in more than 70% of cases. This is known as outcome bias. It means that people simplify complex decisions by focusing on what happened at the end rather than how the decision was made. This creates a practical reality. Leaders are judged by what they achieve, not by what they intended. Machiavelli's point is not that morality has no value, but that in positions of power, results carry more weight than intentions. Ignoring this can lead to decisions that feel correct, but produce weak outcomes, and weak outcomes reduce authority. Lesson number 4. Control perception instead of reality. Machiavelli emphasizes that controlling how people interpret events is often more effective than controlling the events themselves. Reality can be complex and difficult to understand, but perception simplifies that complexity into a clear story that people can follow. Most people do not analyze every detail. Instead, they rely on repeated messages, visible actions, and familiar explanations to form beliefs. This means that whoever controls the narrative has a strong influence over how events are understood. Modern media research confirms this. Studies show that repeated statements are more likely to be accepted as true, even when supporting evidence is limited. This repetition effect can increase perceived credibility by more than 30%. When people hear the same message consistently, it becomes familiar, and familiarity increases acceptance. This explains why consistency matters. A clear and repeated message creates stability in public belief. If communication is inconsistent or unclear, people begin to form their own interpretations, which reduces control. The practical conclusion is simple. Perception shapes belief, and belief shapes behavior. A leader who understands this focuses not only on what happens, but on how what happens is explained and understood. Lesson number 5. Eliminate threats completely. Machiavelli warns against partial action because incomplete solutions leave room for future problems. If an opponent is only weakened, they retain the ability to recover, reorganize, and eventually retaliate. This creates ongoing instability. A weakened opponent does not forget. Instead, they often become more cautious and more determined. This can make future conflicts more difficult to manage. A fully resolved threat, however, removes uncertainty and reduces the likelihood of repeated conflict. Historical conflict data supports this pattern. Situations that are left unresolved often return in the future. For example, territorial disputes that are not clearly settled have a strong tendency to reappear over time. Research in international relations shows that conflicts without decisive resolution are significantly more likely to occur again compared to those with clear outcomes. This does not mean unnecessary aggression. It means that when action is required, it must be complete enough to prevent repeated problems. The principle is practical. Problems that are only partially addressed often grow and return in more complex forms. Lesson number 6. Avoid dependence on external forces. Machiavelli strongly criticizes reliance on external forces such as mercenaries or temporary allies. He explains that these forces operate based on their own interests, not yours. Their loyalty is conditional and can change when circumstances change. When you depend on external support, you reduce your control. Decisions are no longer fully yours because they are influenced by those providing the support. This creates uncertainty and limits independence. Modern geopolitical patterns confirm this. Alliances between nations often change based on shifting interests. Historical studies show that a large portion of alliances eventually weaken or dissolve when priorities no longer align. In business, reliance on external contractors or unstable partnerships often leads to reduced control over outcomes and increased risk. The pattern is clear. The more you depend on others for stability, the less stable your position becomes. Control is strongest when it is built internally and maintained directly. Lesson number 7. Adapt to changing circumstances. Machiavelli introduces the idea that success depends on the ability to adjust to changing conditions. He describes fortune as unpredictable events that cannot be controlled, but he also explains that response to those events can be controlled. Rigid behavior creates vulnerability. When conditions change, those who refuse to adjust are unable to respond effectively. This leads to failure even if their original position was strong. Modern economic data supports this. Businesses that fail to adapt to technological or market changes are far more likely to collapse within a short period. Studies show that organizations that adjust their strategies in response to change have significantly higher survival rates compared to those that remain fixed. Adaptation is not a one-time action. It is a continuous process. Conditions change, and responses must change with them. Those who recognize this maintain stability over time, while those who resist change lose relevance. Lesson number 8. Avoid hatred. Machiavelli makes a clear distinction between fear and hatred. Fear creates order because it establishes boundaries. Hatred creates resistance because it creates emotional opposition. A leader can maintain control while being feared, as long as actions are seen as necessary and measured. However, when actions are perceived as unfair, excessive, or personal, people begin to feel resentment. This resentment builds over time and eventually leads to resistance. Political research supports this pattern. Public dissatisfaction increases sharply when people feel that their security, dignity, or resources are threatened unfairly. Large-scale protests and uprisings often follow sustained periods of perceived injustice. Data from studies on political unrest shows that when economic pressure combines with perceived unfair treatment, the likelihood of mass resistance increases significantly. This confirms Machiavelli's warning. Once hatred forms, it is difficult to control. Preventing hatred is more effective than trying to manage it after it begins. Lesson number 9. Prepare for conflict even during stability. Machiavelli explains that preparation must continue even when there is no immediate threat. Stability should not lead to complacency. Instead, it should be used as a period to strengthen systems, improve readiness, and build resilience. When people assume that stability will continue, they reduce preparation. This creates vulnerability because unexpected events can occur at any time. Those who are unprepared are forced to react under pressure, which reduces effectiveness. Military and strategic studies confirm this. Nations that maintain readiness during peaceful periods respond more effectively when challenges arise. Prepared systems reduce response time and increase the likelihood of successful outcomes. Preparation is not reactive. It is ongoing. The absence of conflict does not remove the possibility of conflict. It only delays it. Those who understand this maintain readiness regardless of current conditions. Lesson number 10. Control advisors and information. Machiavelli explains that leaders rely on information provided by others, and this creates a risk. If the information is incomplete, biased, or incorrect, decisions will also be flawed. This makes the selection and management of advisors extremely important. Advisors must be capable of providing accurate information, but their influence must be controlled to prevent confusion or manipulation. Modern organizational research supports this. Decision quality depends heavily on the accuracy and clarity of information. Poor communication is one of the most common causes of strategic failure. Studies in corporate governance show that miscommunication and lack of clear information flow contribute significantly to poor outcomes. When information is controlled and verified, decisions become more reliable. When information is unclear or inconsistent, uncertainty increases. This leads to mistakes that could have been avoided. The principle is simple. Control the flow of information, and you improve the quality of decisions. Lose control of information, and you lose clarity. All these lessons connect to one consistent observation. Human behavior follows patterns. These patterns include self-interest, emotional reaction, perception bias, and response to consequences. The prince explains power as a system, not an ideal. It removes assumptions about fairness and replaces them with observable behavior patterns. It shows that stability depends on control, perception, preparation, and adaptation, rather than intention alone. Understanding these principles changes how you interpret actions, decisions, and influence. It allows you to recognize patterns that are often hidden behind appearances. Subscribe to Purely Noetical to continue building structured understanding of power and behavior. Which lesson do you believe has the strongest impact today? Fear or perception? The more you understand these patterns, the more accurately you can predict behavior, and the less likely you are to be influenced without awareness.